Hey everybody, it's a crazy time out there. I think that you need to think about right now that might be the most important time for you to start thinking about buying a house. Because if you don't buy now, in a year it could be too late, especially if you're a first-time home buyer. Let's get started. I want to kind of go over with you real quickly what's happened over time. Okay, there's been several times since 2006 that we've had an economy that's gone up and down, and you have to think of it just like one of those big old-fashioned steam engines for a railroad. People would throw wood into there and it would start this fire and it would start the economy, and then it would slow down if you didn't continue to add fuel to the fire. And we've had case after case over the last 20 years that I can tell you that that's happened. I want to go over it so you can just kind of get the feel before I tell you what's going to happen next. All right. So in 2008, we had a situation where what we have the federal funds rate, and the federal funds is controlled by the Federal Reserve. And the Federal Reserve is the money supply for the U.S., okay? Federal Reserve. And when the government needs money, the government comes over and they borrow from them, right? And that's what you always hear, that we're in debt. That's the reason what it is. It's borrowing money from the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve makes money and then they pass it over there. So, and then what happens is this, is in 2008, we had an interest rate of 5.25%, which the Federal Reserve called their Fed funds rate, which is the rate they give to their best clients, which are usually major banks like Bank of America, JP Morgan, Chase Bank, things like that. And then what happens is that mortgage rates are connected to that, and they're about 2.5% on top of that. So they were about 7.75%. Well, there were so many bad mortgages out there because what happened in order to the Bush administration, what they tried to do is they tried to keep it going by eliminating controls for all the banks. The banks were not having a lot of loans go bad because there was such this big building boom going on. And so they kept relaxing controls on there. And then what happened is 2008, we had a slowdown in the economy. And when we had to slow down the economy, people stopped working. And then when people stopped working, they stopped paying on the mortgages. And the stock market went like that. And the amount of defaults on houses went like this. And it was crazy, where we had houses that were once $500,000 going for $100,000. Okay? It was really terrible out there. And nobody could get rid of these houses, so they just plummeted in price. So what happened is the Federal Reserve, the U.S. government, came over and they said, we need help. So they came to the U.S. Federal Reserve and got money from them and then started the process of buying loans, so that they said, hey, it's okay to go out and buy a house. We'll buy the loan and take the loan on our hands. So what the U.S. government did is they borrowed money and they dropped this rate here from 5.25% down to about 3%, which made mortgage rates to about 5.5%, and people were able to refi their houses and get in a lower rate. And the federal government backed those loans. They bought the loans out of there. And so you had a loan that was guaranteed by the government almost, and it allows stability out there, and the economy started coming back out. And in 2016, when Trump came into business, then what happened there was he lowered this from 3% down to about 1%, okay? And then when he lowered to 1%, mortgage rates went down to about 3%, and that's the reason why everybody was able to get 3% mortgages, and it went back up even higher. Well, in 2019, we had, COVID come in, right? And then COVID slowed down the economy again, and so the government came back to the Federal Reserve and borrowed more money, injected more money into the economy, lowered rates down, so the rates went down a little bit lower yet, and the economy took off, okay? Comes to 2024, the federal government's been putting lots of money into the government, into the economy, and so we had inflation going upwards like this. Now, so what did the Federal Reserve have to do? Is they jumped rates back from 0.25%. It was a less than 1% back up to 5.25%, and that slowed the economy down. Well, Trump, since then, they've dropped it a point, so it's down to 2.5, and now Trump wants to drop it 2 more, down to 2.25, so it'll start the economy going again. And this is where I think is the most important part that you learn. It's not this part, this is just history, but what it is what this is going to do to the economy this time, all right? There's a lot more millionaires out there than what there has been before. And what I want to explain to you is what's going to happen if Trump is able to collapse the economy and then that way get the US government to fund his organization again to get the economy going again, and what's it's going to do. So let's talk about that real quick. So if you are familiar, so what's going to happen is this, is that the stock market was at 40,000. Now it's down, the Dow Jones at 40,000, now it's down to 35,000. What he wants to do by collapsing the economy and doing it manually, so it's not just happening without, he's managing it down, doing whatever he can, is that if he can get the Federal Reserve to lower the rates and then he can do his tax cuts, right? Then maybe even get the Federal Reserve to borrow some money, so he can borrow some money, then that will fuel the stock market up to as high as 50,000. Okay, so it's a 20% increase over where it was. And so who's going to benefit from this extra money? Well, if you've got money in the stock market, you're going to benefit some. But who is really going to benefit is the millionaires, okay? The millionaires and the billionaires, okay? And what it's going to do is simply this. These guys, let's say they have $10 million. That's a lot of zeros, in the stock market, right? And it goes up by 20%. They're going to make $2 million. Okay? And there's over 3 million millionaires out there. Okay? So what you have to realize is that these people, when they make $2 million, they're going to reinvest that money into some other form. And some of that money may stock to the stock market, but some of it might go into bonds. Some of it might go to Bitcoin. Some of it might go into artwork. I don't know. What else do you think? You give me a comment what you think. Some of it going to go into houses, right? They're going to buy property. You've already heard that Bill Gates has bought 2 million acres or 1 million acres out in the Midwest, and people don't know what it's going to do. Ted Turner owns 2 million acres. So there are people buying massive amounts of property out there, all right? And for the little millionaires that may only have $2 or $3 million or $4 million, what they might buy is rental homes, okay? They may not be able to afford an apartment complex, but what they could afford is maybe a rental house. So that's where the competition comes in, because if they have $2 million to reinvest, they can either put it in this, or they can go to the local place and buy a bunch of little homes out here. Okay? So the average house in the U.S. right now is $417,000. Most first-time homebuyer homes are about $250,000. So what they're going to do is they're going to buy 4 of these versus one big house. They won't buy one big house because they already own that, right? So why would they want to buy another one? So rather than buy another one of these, they'll buy 4, maybe they'll buy 8 of these. So there's 8 first-time home buyers that are going to be displaced because they can't find a house. And then the price of these houses go from $250,000 to $350,000. And now you can't afford to do it because now they're more $100,000 than what you've done before. And then these guys are just renting these things out because there's so few houses out. They start renting these houses out rather than $1,500 a month. They raise it up to $2,000 a month. So they just keep getting richer. So you need to be thinking this. If you're even in the possibility that you want to either get a new house or buy a new truck, right? If you don't own a house already, you need to think about getting a house now, because once this happens, once this goes back up, if it happens, these people are going to be out there buying your house out from underneath you. And they don't just go out there and they bid for the house. They buy them with cash. So they come in there and they talk to the real estate agent and they go, look, my guy's got cash to buy this house. What's it going to take to buy this house in 15 days? No issues. We're not going to worry about inspections. We're not going to worry about anything. We just want to buy this house. We'll buy it right now. And by the way, we want the other 3 that are on the street too. So they totally buy those things and then they make them rentals or Airbnbs. Okay. So this is why, you guys, I'm hoping that you take this to your realtor, take this as trusted people, you know, talk about it around other people, take it to the community and talk about this, because this is what we've got to stop from happening and this is what you need to do if you're thinking about getting a house. Please think about getting it now versus wait for later. Thank you everybody for coming by. I appreciate your time. Please like and subscribe and have a great day. Bye now.